I'm just gonna make sure this is all okay. Perfect. Okay, I'm good. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, cool.
We're
Cool.
good. Excellent. Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you? How's your day?
I'm fabulous. How are you?
I can't complain. A little tired today, though, not gonna lie. But I
Yeah.
think it's this Cirrus portal, all that amplified energy coming down from the celestial sphere. I
I
feel
just
like
learned
that's
about that yesterday. So yeah,
yeah,
that makes sense. That makes sense.
absolutely.
I'm
Absolutely.
just gonna turn all of this stuff onto don't bother me so I don't get interrupted. Hopefully that stays like that. Okay.
Okay. Exciting.
My yin yang business bestie.
I know. Here we are, like a year down the road.
Isn't
How
it
fucking
so crazy?
it's insane. It's literally a year ago we were like having these accelerated talks and chats and like through Voxer, and now here we are doing this totally different scenario.
Well, and that's, I think, part of what we are both trying to convey to people, right? Is like, you can be in a totally different space, even just a few months from now, if you really do commit to doing the work, right? And I think that's a lot of people, like for me, for me, I was like, I don't need to do that. I'm not going to bother doing the inner work. I don't want to do that. Why would I waste time with that when I have all these things I need to do, right? I have all this stuff I need to plan. I have all these things I need to tick off. I have all these like protocols I need to do because I was stuck in masculine energy, and partly because, well, no, I think fully because I was stuck in masculine energy. And because of that, I was attracting more masculine energy mentors and whatnot, right? And
Absolutely.
I think that's our relationship started. I don't even know. I think we were like networking on some kind of like MLM thing because that's how we both were, what we were doing at the time. Right? And
Yeah.
I remember when you dyed your hair blue, and I was like, I'm going to hype this girl because that looks wicked. And I'm so proud of her. And it was like I don't know why, but like from that point on, it was just like, this girl
It
is
was
like
that
my girl.
fluidity, that cooling energy you needed, that you were attracted to. The universe was like, boom. And then
Yeah.
here we are.
And then
It's
here we
crazy how
are.
those little things just like come together like that.
I just love it.
And
And
we
I
get
never,
exactly what we
yeah,
need from the universe exactly when we like need it. When it's that time, it all just like comes together just like that. It was both of our time to start building that relationship and be able to like accelerate those cues moving forward to like create what we've created, which is
totally.
just unbelievable when you think about it. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy. I was like figuring out how to like move out of my place in Boulder to come to Tahoe, and like I did that little challenge that you did, and then like made like so much money fucking selling my like getting all my random stuff out of my house, because
Yeah, I
who
remember.
ever thought that the stuff that you own is just money energy you're sitting on? You know what I mean? I think that's like what broke it open for me, because it's like, I bought all these things to fill my self-fulfillment voids. Now that I'm not experiencing self-fulfillment voids, transmute it back into that money vibration and energy. And that's like
Right.
a
Up
complete,
level. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And that's like a complete equation of like emotional alchemy plus mindset, like manipulation, so to speak,
Yeah.
which is kind of what like creation and manifestation is, manipulating your mindset.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side of that, for me, it was like, I understand all of this stuff, but for me, it was like to really break through and be able to have my own life be proof of it, because I think both of us were in the place where I can help other people do it, but I'm having trouble really getting to the
Feeling,
point where I feel like I'm a good example of what I can teach. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah, those
there
who
was
don't wed plan.
yeah, totally. Like there was a good portion of time, like when I first started my coaching business and I first um, transitioned to manifestation coaching, I, I mean, part of all of the shadow stuff was coming up, all of the things were going on, and I felt like I had huge imposter syndrome because I'm like, who am I to teach people about manifesting when I live in, my parents-in-law's basement suite and this and that and whatever. And then you and I think through our relationship, not only helped each other build our businesses, but build our confidence, right? Because,
Which is your business foundation, essentially.
well, it is.
Yeah.
And, you were helping me with from the shadow perspective, and I was helping you from like the mindset perspective. And then we were both not only helping each other, but I think in our conversations boosted, like I said, our own confidence of our ability to help other people. Because like I would say something to you and then you would implement it and you're like, oh my God, it works. And then you would say something to me and I would implement it and it was like, oh my God, like look what's happening, right? And it's like, okay, we need these confidence boosters to be able to go out and put it into the world, right? And that's why I say to people when they're frustrated that their business is not taking off as quickly as they wanted it to, like for example, one of my clients in my mastermind group, she makes t-shirts and she was all um discouraged, I guess is the word, when she was in this t-shirt like making group or whatever, and this girl was like, I got an order for 150 t-shirts or whatever, and she was disappointed that that wasn't happening for her. She's like, well, why can't I get an order for 200 t-shirts or whatever? And I said, well, okay, do you have the capacity right now to take an order for 150 t-shirts? And the same as for you and me, like, yeah, we both wanted these like huge businesses. Maybe I'm a little more flashy than you are, so I think maybe my idea of what I'm going for, it looks a little bit different than what you are, but that's fine. Everybody
That's
is
also the
perfectly,
thing,
yeah,
is everybody, there's always room for everyone, because everyone's visions of that are like
yeah.
completely different in every way, shape, and form.
Right, exactly. And one thing I loved about working with you is that that I'm a Leo. I like big, expensive, luxurious, flashy things. Like those things make me feel good, but that's not your jam. But you were still able, because of who you are in your core, you're like, it doesn't matter what your vision is. I just want to help you get to that point, or I want to help you transcend the shadow bits of you so that you can make that a reality, right? And for me, for you, like
Absolutely.
your vision of what you want for your life is not what I want for mine, but I want you to have whatever makes you happy, right? Like
Exactly.
that's ultimately what I think all of us should just be striving for, is whatever makes everybody else the happiest is what we should wish for them. But at the same time, because I want this huge, big, extravagant, flashy thing, but if I was handed that at the beginning of my business, when I said that that's what I wanted, there's no way I would have been able to handle it. You know what I mean? Like there's just no way.
Exactly.
There's just no
Exactly.
way. Not technically, not emotionally, not I didn't have the space to hold for all of those, for all of what would have been the number of people I would have to serve.
And that's an important point as well, is when we're doing that shadow work, we're opening up that space to allow in those new energies. Because if you all of a sudden are like, okay, I want a fucking 6-figure business right off the bat, but you're still filled with all those different energies, you have no room to allow those new frequencies to come into play, which is like, I think what was such a huge like treasure is kind of the word I want to use with the work that, like, and not even just the work, because I don't even want to call it work, the play by play that we get from each other, like the magnetic frequency that bounces back and forth. You know what I mean? Is like, it's that total revamp and like release and forward. And like what you teach helps you deal with the release of the shadow work of the actual releasing. So it's like, I don't know, I think that's just such an important point, because you can't, even if you like can financially support something, if you don't have the energetic space to hold it, you can't hold it. And to get
Yes.
that energetic space, you need to get rid of things that are taking up that space.
Well,
So
right.
that's like a huge point.
Yeah. And further to that point, actually, I was just kind of getting this visual of like, I think for me specifically, and I think a lot of us, our shadow self is a lot of what is suppressed in our jars. You know what I mean? Like we're keeping this lid so tight on all of this shit. Like in our, we've been working together now for, a little over a year, like intensely, a little over a
Yeah.
year. And I have, uncovered a lot of, like, essentially, I've discovered that I have huge emotional abandonment trauma from childhood. And I thought that I was handling it so well and I was like the strong one and this and that, whatever. But that was a survival tactic because I had no choice, because my parents were spending so much time with my sister. And I think, until I discovered that, until I realized that that's what was going on, and all of us, no matter what it is that we're suppressing, that suppression comes with those low vibe emotions. That's why we're suppressing it, because we don't want to,
Yeah.
like, we want to experience all the high vibe stuff, but we don't want to experience all the low vibe stuff. And then as I moved into the manifestation journey, I think I further suppressed it down, like really compacted, because I was like, oh, okay, if I can't pay attention to negative things, if I'm going to attract negative things, then I can't pay attention to any of this shit. So I don't want to even deal with it. So I'm just going to like vacuum seal it in there so that I don't have to deal with it. Right. But then what's happening when we do that, and I think pretty much everybody I know is guilty of that at some point, especially if they're very new to this whole thing, you are not only vacuum sealing also those negative vibes into you, like now they don't even have a chance to come out. Now they're like literally part of you. And then I feel like the visual I'm kind of getting is like it infuses into your body, and then you end up vibrating at this low vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Cannot attract, like a 6-figure, 7-figure, 8-figure business is a very high vibe thing, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
how can you attract I mean, we all know it's universal law. You cannot attract that which you do not vibrate the same as, right? So it's, in that sense, literally impossible. It goes against universal law, immutable universal law, to be able to attract a high vibe business with low vibe frequencies taking up all of this space. So one of the, I mean, for me too, it was my guides through a reading I was having done that told me, okay, like, stop dicking around. You have everything you need, but you need to do the shadow work now. Like, you have to stop avoiding it. And then you were my next call. I was like, okay, Jess, we gotta go deep into this. Like, I am not dicking around anymore. This is happening. And we went into it. And I mean, it's an ongoing process. I'm not ever going to say to anybody that it's like a one and done thing, because
Oh, it never ends. It's like
no.
continuously pulling back the onion. I think another really good thing that I automatically picked up on, which is a shadow thing that I feel like is in manifestation and that you definitely hold to, is it's not a negative emotion, because the second that you say there's something negative about yourself, like, oh, I don't want to feel that because that's negative, you're saying you're not worthy of everything that you are, so to
Mhm.
speak. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
really, from those negative feelings you push down, how much amplification did you receive to what you needed? So the second that you like, or not you, anybody in general, I find myself doing that all the time. I'm like, especially with everything that just happened with my divorce and all of that type of stuff, it was like, oh, I need to be feeling good. Like, I need to be feeling good. I can't feel bad. But then it's like, wait a minute, no, because I'm feeling bad because a part of myself is wounded, which I need to respect. And that's not a bad piece of myself. That's a piece of myself that needs more love so that
Yes.
it can amplify me. And I think that, especially in manifestation in general, and I
Yeah.
think like in the negative, like this, the tone of everything, the label, like the negative, this is good, this is bad, when in reality, everything that you are is inherently beautiful and is exactly how it is for a reason and to lead you onto your path.
Yeah.
And that's something that even like with me, I'm still like, with my divorce and everything, I was like, fuck, like I can't be like, why am I getting upset about this? Like, he did me in, he did me wrong, so on and so forth. Like, I just need to, you know, be happy and kill it and crush it. And it's like, no, but there's a reason for that. And to pay attention to those and unlock those, anytime you even are like, oh, this makes me feel like crap, I shouldn't feel this way, that's when you should be putting all your attention on it in general, because you're going to get that more, that just like, oh, wait, there's a reason for this, and
Yeah.
be able to pull it out.
No, totally. And I think that was one of the most empowering things that I kind of came to the realization of, and I forget even how this came, probably after several conversations and several breakthroughs and whatever. Like, I came to the realization that ignoring your shadow self doesn't do you any good, because your shadow self is still part of you, whether you choose to accept it or not. Right. And I was trying to ignore it. And then the minute I realized that if I just embrace it and just realize where my shadow is, I guess, darker than other places, and where it really
Mhm.
just needs to be more light needs to be shown on that, right? More love
Yeah,
needs to
that's
be to those
exactly it. Yeah.
places, right? Like, that's what it is. Because like you said, and like, actually, it's funny that you say that way, because my podcast episode that aired yesterday is about how nothing is negative or positive. It literally
Mm,
is your
yeah.
perception of it, right? And for me, like, I'm reading right now this little it's a 7 spiritual laws of success.
I read that this time last year.
Oh my
It's
God. Like, I
amazing.
don't know. I tried to listen to the ebook like ages ago, and I kept falling asleep. So anyway, um, but one of the things that he says in here is that, and I believe this to be true, it's just the way that he says it is like so beautiful. He's just like, everything is exactly as it should be all the time. Right. And where you are, like, I kind of visual, and it's funny because I was never a spiritual person, but I've always believed that everything happens the way it's supposed to. And I've always kind of believed which is contradictory to not believing in the spiritual realm. But I've always believed that our lives are somewhat written before we even come here. You know what I mean? And then we're just
Except
kind of like,
that's completely within the spiritual realm for
I know,
sure. Like in soul contracts, yeah.
which is why it's so funny. Like, well, okay, so obviously now, like, I've always been meant to be a spiritual mentor. You know what I mean? Like, I've always been meant to not believe in it and then fully believe in it. So when I was
Mm-hmm.
still thinking about how everything is like the way it should be and it's everything's kind of written the way it's supposed to be, that I'm having an epiphany right now. Like, that was my higher self, you know, letting me know the truth of what is, without me like consciously realizing that, okay, that's a spiritual belief. You know what I mean? Like, that's, but when my husband and I started dating, for example, I didn't even believe in God. Like, he would try to preach to me, and I was like, okay, look, like, I can't, like, there's nothing more than human beings. Like, we are the most intelligent beings there is, la 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 la. Which is like, now I'm just like, how could you possibly believe that? But anyway, so that's beside the point. But
that makes sense though, with the masculine energy that you were surviving within, because
right,
it makes plenty of sense, because your feminine energy, your shadow self, your subconscious is your God energy. So that makes that just makes complete sense. And the more you evolve that, the more like, whoa.
I know, and it's just so beautiful, right? And now I realize, like, now anything that my old self or somebody else might say, okay, that's negative or this is negative or whatever, it's like, well, no, it's just as it needs to be, because I need to work through these things, right? Like, to get to the place that I want to be spiritually, emotionally, physically, even, like, a lot of the shadow stuff must be looked at and transmuted, or at least accepted. You know what I mean? Like, you can't avoid it and expect to go where you want to go. And although it is, I mean, you and I both know it's totally possible to manifest anything
Yeah,
at any place in your life, but the ability to hang on to it, right? That's the key. Like, it's like that Seinfeld episode. Anybody can take a reservation.
yeah, exactly.
The holding of the reservation, right? Like, that's like, I just love that episode. It's so, anybody can just take. Anybody can just
It's so
manifest.
good.
Like, hanging on to the manifestation, though, right? Like, that's why people who win the lottery, for example, end up pissing it away and being in a worse financial situation. I think it's like 3 years later, they're in a, like, average, they're in a worse financial situation than they were before they won, because they got all this money
And they have no idea
and they have no idea, like,
how to align with
subconsciously,
it.
consciously, yeah, how to deal with it, how to handle it, how do you have money, like. And I believe fully that that is one of the reasons why I struggled financially for so long, was because if I had been given the 6-7 figure business that I wanted at that time, I would not have learned the lessons that I did, and I would have pissed it away, and I'd be in the exact same position regardless, except now I would have spent millions instead of hundreds. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's,
Exactly.
you
And
know,
it's also, and for me, it's like it's like the complete opposite rotation, which is a good point as well. For like, some people will start where you'll start, and some people will start from where I start. You know what I mean? With what it goes with, because I couldn't even, for me, everything is so just woo, whatever. And like that masculine energy of having to sit down and write a post or do a morning routine. And like now, yes, I don't have a solidified morning routine, but to get to this point, I needed to build those habits and those things so I could do them automatically. And like, for me, it was the exact opposite. I was all in my head, all in my brain. And then when I came into contact with you, I started being able to like put in the logistics and put things onto paper and get the actions moving that are the only way you can get all of those intuitive thoughts and feelings and everything. Because I mean, even programs like the Dark and Bite that I released in December of 2020, that's something I had been thinking about for like years.
mhm.
But I wasn't at quite the empowerment spot yet, and I couldn't get things fucking rolling. Like before like we started working together,
Yeah.
like I had everything I need. I've had clients for 3 years that I see every month, all of these different things, but the actually putting everything into one spot and putting a post out there, getting a website up, like fucking doing all of that, I couldn't get to, because I had no masculine. The masculine energy I had coming through was like a defensive border it wasn't an evolved masculine energy. So I had my evolved feminine subconscious self operating up here, everything in my head, my intuition, and then all my earthly plane, root chakra, masculine fire type of energy was just like embers. And you can't, that's on your body mind is so separated there. And that's why the soul body alignment purpose is so, it's such a foundational thing for everybody, but where you start from can be different, because like some people start where Danielle is, some people start where I am. And at some point though, you have to do both. You have to get both of those spheres. You have to get your spiritual self, your metaphysical self, your earthly self, your masculine self to come together, or you're just like, it's like you have one boob that's way heavier than the other one. And you can't get you know what I mean? You like can't get a bra that fits right to hold them in the same position. And because it's not just the mind, it's the action. So it's the combination of the body and the mind. And I think our connection and like what we have for the collective in the world and how we've proven, I want to say definitely proven that like to about 100 and probably 10% the results of that through just the universe kind of pulling us together and us feeding off of each other in such a way. I think it's like me realize as well, like you can learn how to incorporate things your way. You know what I mean? So like from you, like you're like the big aspect of this schedules, routines, getting stuff out, all of this. And like from that, I've taken bits and pieces and the foundations of that and made it Jess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like you don't have to do everything exactly how someone's defining it or teaching it, or they're like, you need this to do this. It's like, no, you take the bits and pieces and you allow them to formulate for you, but both sides are just as equally important.
Yeah, no, you're so right. And going off of that, like when I was in that 12-month spiritual program that I actually ultimately didn't even finish, like I was part of it for the whole 12 months, but I realized I didn't even finish the last like 4 or 5 months. Anyway, and I think one of the reasons why I pulled back from it, maybe was part of it, I wasn't ready for the teachings, but part of it I think too was the mentor that I had was very like, she was very like routine too. Like you need to start your day with this, and you need to end your day with this. And it was like, if you were doing everything that she wanted you to do, you were going to be spending like an hour and a half in the morning and another like hour and a half before bed. And at that time, it's not even about the time for me but at that point in my life, I was trying to get a new business off the ground and I had a lot of resistance to that. I had a young son who was like literally clung to me like a freaking baby koala bear. My husband wasn't really supportive of the whole thing yet, right? So he was like the thought of telling him that I was going to go spend an hour like basically telling him to leave me alone for an hour while I did that was like, there's no way I can do that. There's no way he will not give me this, because I had not, but I realize that paints him in a bad light, but I don't mean it like that. I mean, I had not set the boundaries. I didn't have the confidence in myself to set the boundary that said, this is important to me, because now
it had nothing to do with him.
No, it never does. Right? It never does, because ultimately
it never does.
Now, I mean, he sometimes will still give me the like, oh, okay, whatever, see you in an hour and a half or whatever look, but I have the confidence to say like, this is important to me. I'll be back when I'm done. Right. And anyway, back to my point. So she had all these things that she like wanted you to do. Right. And she was very much like, do them this way. The way that I say is the way to do it. And so even though I am at that point was fairly masculine energy, I was still like, when am I supposed to fit all this? Like, when am I supposed to do all this? Like, I'm going to be up before everybody and then awake past everybody because I don't have to. And then I had a job. And then because I started a job, and then we had to put my kid in daycare because my husband got sent out for military training, and it was like just way too much. Right. So I think one of the reasons I was resistant to the whole practice was because this is like a rigid thing that I don't feel fits me. So now what I've learned and what I say to my clients, and you've probably heard me say too, is like, look, this is what works for me. This is what I recommend based on what I know. But if it doesn't feel good to you to do it that way, then do it a different way. Like, for example,
and that's most important, because you're creating your own resistance if you're just doing something to do it instead of off of feeling.
Exactly. Like I'll say, you can try it my way, like try it on and see how it feels. But like, for example, I was sharing this like to manifest list technique where I say, list out these, 6 items and do them in whatever intuitive order, blah, blah, blah. And then one of my clients was like, well, but I like to list out like every little thing so that I can tick them off. Like I like to tick things off more, like the satisfaction of
That's
ticking.
what I do too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, if that feels better to you, then don't limit it to 6 items. Write every single thing. And you know what? Even I will sometimes I'll write something on my list just to tick it off that I did it so that I feel good about what I got done, right? Especially when I'm working on a project or something, because I find too, because now that I'm flowing in more feminine energy, still very masculine, but I'm flowing in feminine energy too, is I'll be in the middle of doing something like in the layout that I intended to do it. Like I need, okay, this email sequence and this, landing page and whatever. And then I'll get this like inspired idea to add in a second email or make this thing go off on this other tangent first and then come back to the sequence or like whatever, like I'm building a funnel or something. So that I want to record that, right? Oh yeah, and then I did this email sequence and I record it, and sometimes I'll get this like inspiration to just like record a video out of nowhere, so I take a pause and like record a YouTube video or something. So, but all of it, right? Like do what feels good to you, like use your intuition. The only thing that I'll say, and I think you'll agree with me here, is it's just really important when you are rubbing up against something that doesn't necessarily feel good. Does it not feel good because it's not aligned, or does it not feel good because you're resistant to it, right? Like I think there's a very, very fine line there between not aligned and you are resisting it or self-sabotaging it because it's scary and uncomfortable, right? And
I think oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
And I think you can totally, that it's such a fine line. I think one of the biggest identifying factors with that is when you get that feeling, are you getting memories that are flashing to your mind? Are you getting like a recognition with something else? Because if you are, it's just your ego. It's just something holding you back. It's not you not being on. Then if it's like, there's no memory feeling, but it just like, it doesn't feel right. That's how I like to figure it out. It's like, if I get a flash memory, I know I'm relating it to another experience and it has nothing to do with the present moment. But I have self-sabotaged so much in that way, because I'll be like, oh no, especially being like all water, a whole water sign, everything water sign related, which is also another big point too that I think people kind of overlook, is you have to like look at your celestial makeup in these type of circumstances, because like for everybody, it's going to be different how you're feeling things. Like for me as a water sign, where all I work off of is emotion and like not really logic or anything like that, having that resonated memory, that's logical for me. So I know, okay, that's logical. So that's my ego. That's not my feeling. That's not my, subconscious self, my body mind giving me a message. So for you, someone who's like a fire sign, that could be a totally different thing, but really getting in touch with at least, I think, the element that you're mostly made of really brings you, because even like you working in your feminine energy as a Leo is going to be way different than me working in my feminine energy as a Pisces. You know what I mean? So even like that is, and I know that was kind of random compared to what we were just talking about, but like, I think even knowing those things is like, you're going to be able to pick up on your own key factors of your intuition going off and what's working, especially on those fine lines that really, everything that has to do with metaphysical stuff is a fine line.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. It's all kind of a paradox. It's all a fine line. It's all, that's so true. It's so funny. Oh my God. But and further to your point, let's just go off on this tangent now. The water and the fire signs are like knowing your horoscope, having your birth chart read is like an incredible experience. I also found for me that learning, I don't know that much about my human design, but I know enough about it that it makes sense, right? Like, so I learned that I was a manifester, which at first I was like, duh, like that makes sense, right? But further into that though, like I don't know all the like the numbers and the points and the way it's pointing, like I don't know any of that. Like, I mean, it's been explained to me, but I just, whatever. But like for me, a couple of things made a lot of sense when I learned them. Like one, and I forget like how it was worded, but basically because of my energy type, having somebody tell me what to do is like the worst thing possible for me, which is why my employment, it was always like really good at first because, it was like new and exciting and I'm getting to meet new people and all this. and I love being praised, right? So when you do a good job at a new job, it's like, oh yes,
You're
this
like,
employee's a rock star, la la la, right? Like, so I love it as long as I'm being like talked up, you know what I mean? But as soon as like, okay, old
yeah,
news, then I get bored because it's like, well, this is stupid. Like, I don't want to do this anymore, right?
I don't want to do
So,
it.
right. So I think that's one of the reasons why not only did I have many jobs that ultimately also served in my evolution, but why entrepreneurship really is the best move for me is because I don't do well being held down and told what to do. That could be the fire too, but I don't do well being told what to do. And also, I think why there's another aspect of it that I need to be, well, I guess the flip side of that is I need to be in control, or I guess another factor of that, which is why my relationship with my husband at some points has been kind of struggling as well, because I didn't have that like my thing. And then because he's the masculine, and we're told that the man has to be the masculine and the woman has to be the feminine. So we were, but I wasn't in my feminine energy. So we were like struggling for alpha too.
You were
So that,
repelling each other's magnetically
yeah.
when
Well,
you
and
have
he's a
like
fire
two
sign too.
magnetic, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you,
Like he's a Leo too, full on. So it was like, so there's that. Um, but since I have embraced my feminine side and embraced my human design and really found well, I guess ultimately this is one of the reasons why it's so important for us to find our calling and to pursue it, is because you will show up as the best version of yourself even when you have shadow shit to face, and even when things are not going as you planned. When you are flowing with the river instead of against it, and you're just doing what you're meant to do, everything just falls so beautifully into place, right? And that, I think, is ultimately what I want everybody to know about why it's vital that you do the inner development necessary. Like, it's not even inner work, it's inner development, right? Because it's
yeah.
only work if you look at it that way, I think.
And that's why yeah, and that's another thing too, is like the working when it comes to the spiritual field, I think automatically puts that logical like barrier up. And that's like something that like I definitely, even with my new Reiki students that I'm seeing, is you're like, well, how do I do it? How do I do it? Can I listen to this meditation? And it's you have to, whatever you're called to is what you need
Yeah.
to do. There is no like certain recipe or formula for it. It's not work. It's like literally the opposite of work, which people struggle so much with until they add
Yes.
all of these elements together.
No, that's so funny that you say that, because I was talking to some of the girls in my 28. We're just wrapping up the first round of this consistency kickstart 28-day program, right? And it was kind of like a beta thing. I want to see how it goes. And I asked one of the girls, like, how's it going? And she's like, well, it's not really what I expected, but it's exactly what I needed. And I was like, okay, well, what were you expecting? And she's like, honestly, I was expecting it to be hard, and it's not. Like, I think so there's resistance to, because the program is like to build a spiritual and personal development like practice routine that you do, daily, weekly, whatever, so that you can build up this knowing and this connection with your intuition, with the universe, so that you can be guided. Because when I started my business, you remember, it was very much like mindset, manifest, like get your ducks in a row and you'll be able to manifest what you want. And
Mhm.
now, as I've evolved and done work with you and with other healers and my other coaches and stuff, I've come to the realization, as have you. It's funny, we came to the same place from different angles, is that it's
Exactly.
not even about the things like that. Like, even for me to say, for me as somebody who loves shiny sparkly things, to say what I'm about to say is like pretty important. Okay. So although all of that is great, like, I definitely still want the luxury vehicle, I still want the big beautiful house, I still want all the things. That is all literally, and I'm not just saying this, it is literally just the cherry on top of the icing on top of the cake. Like, being fully
Mhm.
aligned with who you really are and what you're here to do, and being able to go out and fulfill your purpose in whatever that looks like. Like, maybe you're a makeup artist, maybe you're a coach, maybe you work with early childhood education, maybe you're a special needs assistant, maybe you're a doctor, maybe you're an accountant. Like, whatever it is that lights you right up, like, that's what you should be doing. And when you're aligned with that purpose and you're living from that, and you are then, because of that, you are attracting all the magic and miracles and everything you could possibly want to you effortlessly, like, that is the goal. When I first
Oh,
started this journey, I thought the money was the goal. And now it's like, that's all good.
that's an emotional void you were filling from your
Yeah.
childhood trauma of
Yeah.
abandonment. You need to fill it with the monies, but now you
Yeah.
filled it with yourself.
You know what? I just had a realization. I think because why the money, because money is not always the void filler, but for me, I think it was,
Whatever it is. Yeah.
yeah, no, I know. But for me, because it definitely was the void filler, I think for me, it was like, okay, well, I'm totally just thinking this right now, but I think for me, it was like, I want to continue to be the star child my parents
Yes,
think that I
yes,
am, right?
yes. So
I
you're
want to
holding
give them,
yourself to this certain thing they're not even
yeah,
holding you to.
yeah,
That's,
yeah,
yeah.
because, I just realized, like I didn't mean to turn this into like a coaching session, but anyway,
No, no,
when
no,
I
no.
was little, yeah, when I was little, the only attention I ever really got, now, okay, that's not really true, but
As
from
a
my
child,
perspective now, as I see it, as I enter, and that's a side tangent. Actually, I think that's important that we talk on for just one sec. Is regardless of what actually happened in childhood, in a conversation, in a disagreement with somebody now, previously, whatever, it doesn't matter what was actually said and what was actually done. What's important is how it was received, right? Like and not even how it was sent, but how it was received,
yeah.
right? Because there's a lot of
How it
time
was
my husband will give me,
processed through yourself and
yeah,
felt. Yeah.
yeah, because there's like, I noticed that mostly there's a lot of times my husband I feel like he's giving me the gears about something. He's like, why are you getting so defensive? Like, I'm not mad. I'm just saying XYZ, like the cups should go in the dishwasher or whatever. That's something stupid. But I jumped the inner childhood, oh my God, I'm in trouble, I have to defend myself mode, right? But yeah, when I was a kid, a lot of the time, all I really got attention for, as I perceived it, was when I was being congratulated for a good report card, or winning a scholarship, or whatever. Like, it was always, and it was based around my achievement, not around just being a good person, you know what I mean, or just like having that like emotional connection.
Yeah.
I did have a fairly good relationship with my parents, and I don't feel like I was abandoned in that sense. But now, as I look back, I was 100%, like when I sent you that graph of all of this like emotional abandonment stuff, I was like, oh my God, all of this, like I do all of these things, all of this happened, like this entire chart is like, and it was like 12 items, and I was like, this whole thing is like me. So I think for sure, like a lot of us, if we can step back and look at the goal we have and determine, like, is that actually something that I want, or is that something that I feel like I need to achieve so that I get what I feel is missing? You know what I mean? Like, I definitely,
Exactly. Or
oh, good.
who you feel everyone is looking for you to be
Yeah.
or to see you as.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is funny because, like, I say, the goals that I have not changed. I still want all those things, but I want them for different reasons
It's
now.
the vibration surrounding them that's
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, totally. And I
And
care
that's
less about
it's
what other people think about it, and I care only about how it makes me feel, which is really the key, right?
and when you were saying all of that, I literally like had my same own epiphany, but like again, on the opposite spectrum. So I've always been, I have my 93 Jeep, which is my badass fucking car. I fucking love her. And like, I'm all about, if this would have been a good person, this hippy dippy, like whatever, not materialistic, but I think like I'm buying myself a Range Rover for Christmas this year, and like a Sage Range Rover. That's what I'm buying myself for Christmas. And I think I had to get to this point of integrating that shot. And like, when I was the kid, I was the one getting in trouble. I was never the one with the shiny finish, with the, I was being bailed out of jail, not being given the scholarship, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. So I
Yeah.
think, it took me taking my shadow stuff and then implementing the worthiness things you teach to bring that into the physical realm where now I'm like, yeah, I actually like nice things. Like, sure, I'm driving my 93 Jeep that's badass and rugged, but I'm hopping out of that in like all my Calvin Klein workout gear that's like $300 worth of stuff, and my Coach bag. You know what I mean? So like, and now it's kind of like, I'm going to keep my Jeep, but I'm buying myself the Range Rover because you know what? Like, I am a badass bitch and I can throw my snowboard in that Range Rover if I want to. But you get that fuller finish. And like, it made me realize that like, even though I'm kind of like rugged and shady and like kind of like whatever, Like, I do like that bad bitch bougie self. And like, I am a little undercover bougie. And I've like finally been able to allow myself to accept that and like integrate that into who I am now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just had like that moment when I was like, when you were talking about your moment, I was like, oh shit. Like that's exactly how I'm feeling, but different. I'm allowing myself to be like, no, I want that really expensive fucking thing now. Instead of like, oh no, I don't need that. I can like make it myself or do it myself or just have the Jeep. I don't need to just have the Jeep. I can have that what is it? The backpacking, what is it called? Off whatever, my
Off-road?
off-roading vehicle,
Yeah.
my off-roading doing whatever vehicle, and then my bad bitch ride too. You know what I mean? Like you can do
Oh,
both.
totally.
And that duality is something that I've finally fully accepted with using those worthiness and that, and like yes, the worthiness of the shadow, but I mean more the worthiness of like that, no, you deserve to have that, like get yourself the dinner out if you want to type of thing. That like I think I really pulled from that Leo energy of yourself and like what you teach, and that allowing yourself to have that even if you don't need it, you know what I mean, but just because like you can,
Well, yeah. I mean, all of
which is
us,
great. Yeah.
every single one of us has everything we need, right? Like you have everything you need and you have everything you need available to you if you're willing to tap in, right? But then above that, why shouldn't I have nice things, right? Like we just sold my car a little while ago and we're gonna eventually get a second vehicle because we have a Jeep as well. We got it this, my husband has this lifted fucking
I'm
monster.
lifting my Jeep too. I think this summer.
Yeah, like he's got this big lifted huge tires thing and I don't really like to drive it. Like for me, I like a luxury driving experience. Like I only had a Volkswagen Golf before, but it was like lowered and very smooth and very
Yeah.
like whatever. And this one, it's like you really have to like hold the freaking thing. Like I just don't like how big the
That's how you
tires are.
have to like work for it when like
Yeah, you got
when
to
you
work for it.
drive.
You got to white
Yeah.
knuckle the thing. Like it's not, for me, it's not the driving experience that I look forward to. So we're definitely going to get a second vehicle and we're something that's a little bigger and whatever. And my husband's like looking at, like I was looking at Cadillacs or whatever. And then he was like, well, how about just like, he's like, these Toyotas are nice. And I was like, fuck a Toyota, man. Like, no.
First of all, I'm sorry, Toyota, but I hate Toyotas. I can't, I don't know what it is about them, but like just the fact you just said Toyota, I just like,
Well,
I don't even
no, okay. So I don't have anything against Toyota or like any of
I
those other vehicles, but for me, it's like I am not going to feel good
in a
setting
Toyota.
something that looks more practical. Like I don't care what people think about it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I fully want, like fully, the vehicle that I want starts at 111 grand. Okay. Like I want a 2021 or better black Audi RS Q8. Okay. I don't care what anybody says. That is what I want. And I'm going to spend a shit ton of money on it. And that's what I want. And my husband's like,
Yeah.
he likes the way that they look, but he's like, that's a lot of money. And all I hear is maintenance this. I'm like, well, obviously, first of all, we're not going to buy it until it's actually feasible. Like I'm not going to go and buy this ridiculous vehicle when I have no way to pay for a service. Like that's stupid, right? Obviously I want to, my family's security is more important to me than a luxury vehicle. But at the same time, like you said, like I deserve to have the vehicle that I want. Not, I don't need to just settle for what's like practical. That is what I want and that is what I'm going to have and that is what it is because I deserve it and I can. And ultimately when we're talking about money in general, like there's always more coming. There's always more coming. Whether you're an entrepreneur or you're employed by somebody or anything, like there's always more money coming. Like ultimately, unless you have died, money has actually never fully run out. Even if you have run out like of money in this minute, you got more, like you're still alive, which means you ate, which means you got money or something, right? Like there's always more coming. So to limit yourself on what's possible for you based on what it looks like right now that you can afford is stupid. Everybody should dream as big as they
So
want to
dumb. It's
because
so dumb.
yeah, like, and I think one of the things that I said to you that you took and ran with was it's no harder to manifest money than it is to manifest a banana.
Yeah, that was exactly
But
it.
because if I decide I want a banana, I know right now that I can go anywhere to any of these grocery stores, probably even the gas station, and get a banana. Right? Money is just as
Yeah.
easy to create, but we have all this resistance to it because we're taught that it's hard and that it's not, you have blood, sweat, and tears and all this shit to get it. When really, like you said at the beginning of this call, you can look around your house and go, okay, like I've got sitting here 7 decks of Oracle cards. Those are each easily $20 each. I could go sell those for probably $12 each, give somebody a discount, and I will have just made whatever 7 times 12 is, because I can't do math. But
yeah, right. Same.
whatever it is. You know what I mean though? Like I like I'm good at math with a calculator, but not in my head.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, because it does it for you.
Like I know the equation to put in, but yeah. But no, like
That's so good.
everything, like this computer that I have in front of me, right? Like this is a $1,700 computer. Like that's money. I could, like if you really needed to, you could sell anything you have and make some cash. Do you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
not that difficult to, like you said, it was once money, then you purchased it, and you can turn it back into money if you want to, if you need to, right? Or when people are following their divine light and doing what they're actually here to do, whether they are still employed or not, you can, there's no reason you can't have also sell a course on something you're passionate about. There's no reason you can't.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
my husband's cousin, she has a really good job, and then she also knits and makes things on the side. She
Oh,
has an
yeah.
Etsy shop, and she's, you know, doing quite well. And it's like, what, I think everybody should have multiple streams of income. Why are we limiting multiple streams of income to just entrepreneurs? Like everybody should have multiple streams of income. For you to rely solely on your career, and actually let's go into that for just 1 second, because my mother-in-law has been in insurance with, I mean, all my mom, my dad, and my mother-in-law have all been in insurance since they were like in their early 20s. And insurance is one of those like secure career paths because there's always going to be insurance, right? Well, okay, but both of them, or all three of them, have been laid off multiple times, multiple company takeovers. You know, all these insurance companies with more money want to buy this insurance company. And every time that happens, you're at risk of getting laid off, right? And just recently, my mother-in-law, she's one of the best at what she does, but her company was just bought out, and she was very stressed out about the fact that she may not have a job. They may give her a package and tell her to get lost. And she was like, you couldn't even speak to her. Like 2 weeks, she was like, she just stayed in the house, wouldn't talk to anybody. She was like, just not herself. And I was like, if you put that much power into something outside of you, like that's a huge problem.
It's a huge problem.
Like if you identify so strongly with what you do for a living that you're not going to be yourself if you don't have that job, like that's a problem. You know what I mean? That's a problem. And I think everybody should, you know, my mom says, and my mom's an employee through and through, like 100%, but she will say, the company you work for, if you died tomorrow, the company would have your job posted before your obituary is out, like for sure. Right? Like they don't care. You're a number. They don't care. And so that being said, just alone, everybody should have another thing, and any other thing that you have can also make you money. Like that's the other thing people don't realize is anything you do, you're passionate about, you've been through, like you can make money doing
anything.
Like it's 2021, people, anything. You can make money doing anything.
Yeah. Literally, and I'll put it on, this is like a little goofy thing, but like my neighbor and my friend, her dog has been having anxiety because they're both working again now. So she can't be alone. So some days Kayla just needs to go to a yoga class. She brings Indigo over, and then, you know, she'll give me like $20 for the hour or something. I don't even need it. She doesn't have to give that to me, but that's just like, you never know. Somebody can just be like, hey, could you watch my dog for an hour so I can go get my sweat on? And there you go. You know what I mean? Like it comes from everywhere.
No, and it really comes down to when you tap into the realization that you are fully supported and you realize how it works and you're open to ideas, the ideas are given to you, right? And the ideas that are given to you are money-making ideas. And I think what stops most people is, and actually I saw this happen to my husband. This is a great example. So he loves to garden. He's got a green thumb like you wouldn't believe. It's so funny because he looks like a hardcore, like would mess you up before he would plant a flower, but like he's a marshmallow. Anyway, so I said to him, like, or he wanted to put in a greenhouse. And I was like, you know, you could record that whole process, put it on YouTube, make a little course. And I had this, like, I got going on all these like ideas of how you could monetize this journey without him having to do anything extra, right? Like, I'm just going to record what you're doing and then we can turn it into all these things. And he was like all about it. And then in a matter of like maybe 12 minutes, he went from, yes, that's an awesome idea, to no, that won't work. This, that, next thing, these people aren't going to care about it. Who's going to watch that? There's so many people doing it, blah, blah, blah. Talked himself back out of it. And I was like, That's your ego getting in the way. The ideas are your higher selves, or, in this case, it was me because I was the path of least resistance for the ideas.
You were the conduit for his higher self because he'll listen to you more than he's going to probably listen to a voice in his head.
Right, exactly. So I'm, channeling these messages for him, and then he just totally talked himself back out of it. And I was like, I mean, it's not about the money and needing the income. Like, that has nothing to do with it. I don't care if he wants to do it or not.
Getting jazzed about something that you can show other people based on what you love, though.
Right. And then anyway, he's coming around to it. But it's just funny how we when we don't know any better, and he kind of does know better, he's coming around. But anyway, when we let our ego get in the way and talk us back out of all the reasons why it won't work. And I actually saw a quote the other day that was like perfect. It went, "You're not afraid of failing. You're afraid of other people seeing you fail. But what other people think about you,
I've seen that
business anyway. So move on, right? And follow your heart, right?" And that's really what you and I are doing, is getting all the things out of the way so that you can come back to who you really are and align with what you're supposed to do and shine your light in whatever way that looks. And yeah, you know what? There are going to be people who don't say nice things about it. There are going to be people who, like, that TikTok video I did is a perfect example. I don't know if you've seen it, but where I dunk my hair in the water and then it comes out. There is, I don't know, we're up almost at 500,000 views, and there's like 800 comments, and more than half of them are very mean. And it's like, how can you hate on a video about curly hair? Like, this is so ridiculous. You guys are so ridiculous. And my husband's like, oh, but like, I think he's worried that I'm going to get my feelings hurt, right? And I was like, I don't even care. These people need to get a hobby, man. Like, these people have nothing better going on. And I've come to the realization that TikTok is for followers.
Yeah.
I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean, like, TikTok is because everything's based on trends and what this person is doing. I'm going to recreate this same dance.
That's why I don't understand. That's why I don't understand the TikTok.
No, and you know what? What got me into it is all the moms just being like actual moms and like just being like authentic. This is what it actually looks like, not like on Facebook when they're like, "Oh, my kids are so perfect." And it's like they were literally like screaming at you right before you took that picture. You know what I mean? Like, it just felt like it is. Anybody who has kids knows that that's not, like, arts and kids is like a total fucking gong show. It is not a organized, calm thing, right? So like, why are you making it seem like it is to people who don't have kids? Because they're not, like, they're getting a total false perception of what, but that's kind of what social media is in general. I guess you get kind of a false perception. But my point is that people are gonna have their opinions no matter what you do. You know what I mean? And yes, the more you put yourself out there and shine your light, the more it is going to trigger discomfort in people who are not ready. Right? But that cannot be the reason you don't do it. Like, I've come to the full realization that I am fully doing the universe and my destiny here a disservice by staying safe in my little Facebook group with my little 600, members and whatever. Like, that's why I'm branching out to, like, doing YouTube videos and doing more podcast episodes and stuff. Like, it's my literal duty to get this information out to the people, because I had a conversation with another girl the other day, and I was like, you forget that not everybody knows this stuff.
Yeah. I experience that I feel like I experience that all the time, especially being in shadow work, is like, I'm even in my like day-to-day interactions, like I'm always thinking about, oh, that's my ego. Oh, that's a projection. But most people aren't walking around like that. So they're just like, yeah, well, you're blah, 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 and fuck you. And it's like, whoa.
Whoa. Yeah.
I had to think about that going through my divorce and everything. It's like, okay, I'm seeing everything for what it is. But like 6 years ago, before I did this work and when I was still in that same spot where my now ex-husband is, I would have never been able to see past my anger, my pain, my trauma, my whatever was there. And that's something that we have to think about as well. Like, you can't feel some type of way. People can only meet you as far as they met themselves. And like, that's something you really have to remember on any type of journey like this as well. It's like, you might be up here, but like that person who just slammed the door on your face in the donut shop and was like, fuck you for getting too close to me. Like, they're not dealing with their stuff. Like that's just whatever happened to them this morning coming to you. It has nothing to do with you type of
Yes.
like mentality and things like that. And I don't know where we were just talking about that from, but yeah, no, I noticed that. I fucking noticed that all the time. All the time. It's like, okay, yeah, not everybody is walking around with shadow infusion continuously playing out. Oh no, that's just my ego. Oh no, that recognition doesn't go with that one. Oh, you know what I mean? Or like, even I find that like with some of my friends when I'm like talking about money frequency, because you know how you were saying that like a penny, $100 bill, they all have the same. This was a couple years ago or something like that, but they all have like the same exact frequency. And someone will just be like, walk over a penny on the ground, and I'll be like, are you not gonna fucking pick that up? I'm like, you're gonna leave this money on your floor? Like, what are you doing? And they're like, it's a penny. I'm like, well, do you want wealth? Do you want money? Do you respect your finances? Because you're literally disrespecting that money. And they're like, and they just look at me like, are you fucking kidding me right now? I'm like, yo, sorry. Like, you know what? You signed up for being my friend, but like for real, pick that shit up because
Oh my God. That's so funny because, okay, I had an internal struggle the other day because we went into the dentist office and then we came out and there was a nickel on the ground. But this part of town, there's like, it's not good. Okay. And there's like always like hookers out and stuff. And I was like, I looked at it and I'm like, it's so dirty, but I don't want to be disrespectful. So I ended up picking it up, but I was just like, oh, it's so dirty. But but I have to, you can't. I'm what am I
you're
too good to pick up 5 cents? Like,
you
no way.
saved that money frequency and elevated it yourself.
Well, there you go. I ended up putting it under my pillow with this other little affirmation I've been reading, um, to give it like that extra boost. I didn't realize that's what I was doing, but you know what? Back to what you said about you know, somebody slamming the door in your face, and you're like, okay, that's your shit, not mine. I was on TikTok of all places. I was watching this girl talk about, one of the most life-changing things she ever did. She said was recognize and decide that nothing is personal unless somebody says it to you. She's like, I came to the realization that I'm an adult, you're an adult, we're all adults. If you have a problem with me, you have a responsibility to say that to me. And if we haven't had a discussion about that, if you're being lippy to me or are rude or whatever, I'm going to assume that that has nothing to do with me and that's somebody else's problem or it's your problem. So if you're not going to say it to me, then I'm going to assume everything is peachy. We've got, an agreement. And I think that's legit. We do as adults have this tendency, especially the people who are very, and I used to be like this too, very passive and like, oh, whatever, I won't deal with it. I'll brush it under the rug. I'll pretend it didn't happen, whatever. But you carry around because you
All of
haven't let
that.
it out. You're suppressing it and you're dealing with that. And then that ends up being projected in other circumstances too. Right.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
like you say, like now I too, because I've done shadow work with you and because of the work that I'm doing, just in general, I'm always like, okay, well, what part of me is being projected back to me right now? Where does that come from? Like yesterday, or what, it doesn't matter when it was, but the other day, my husband said something about, I forget what we were talking about, something, but he related rich people to sleazy people. And I was like, whoa.
Oh.
I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. I was like, stop right what you're saying. Cancel, clear, delete that shit right now. And I said, that is one of the reasons why we have been repelling the wealth that I'm asking for. And I said, and I'm not, and I was kind of pointing at him. I was like, I don't mean you, me too, because you wouldn't have said that you wouldn't have said it to me if it wasn't a reflection of something that I believe inside of me. Right. So I was just like, oh, and then he was like, oh shit. Cause I have, a lot of people will disagree with this, but I firmly believe, like firmly, 110%, you're not going to convince me otherwise, that anything somebody says to you is a reflection of something that you believe to be true, which is why I think it's important to spend so much time with high vibe people, because then you are spending more time in your own high vibeness, right? Because like for you and me right now, we're just exchanging high vibe thoughts that both of us already have. And we're just like verbal, you know what I mean? But a lot of people will say, well, that's how you think and that's what you believe and that's whatever. Well, no, part of you believes that too. Otherwise it wouldn't have been said to you. It wouldn't be in your realm of experience if
Exactly.
it wasn't aligned with you in
If
some
you
way.
need to hear it nonetheless, if it wasn't supposed to open up something for you in
Yes.
some sort of way.
Yes. Oh, that's
Absolutely.
so good. That is even more true than anything is, yeah, 100%. Like
Yeah.
anything being presented to you, like a couple of the girls in my mastermind are now like they've been in there enough now that they've kind of they're moving up the rungs of things that they need to work through. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
first, as you know, we need to, which is what I was trying to avoid originally, clear the shit out of the way first, because we only have so much capacity, right? And when every time we have something projected to us that we can work through, we're being invited to expand and transmute and whatever. So, you know, this situation comes up, and then this situation comes up, and then this situation comes up. And I was like, okay, well, this situation keeps coming up because she's trying to avoid it. This situation keeps coming up because you need to deal with it, right? And it wouldn't be in your realm of thought process right now if it wasn't the time.
Yes. And okay, so just huge, like real quick, this is going to be, so this is something that I completely agree with that statement that you just made about you won't convince me otherwise, is because, and the whole talking about your mastermind, somebody else, is over the last year with the shadow portal, there have been 3 women in the shadow portal who have left abusive relationships based on narcissism and all of these other factors and everything like that. And I've helped them through it and given them all of these and you know, they're living better lives now. They've moved on, they found better partners now, people who, and that was all in my face, I feel like, for the last year so heavily, because that was exactly what was happening in my own life. And I had, through all of that, I started seeing my own things and being able to be like, oh, I recognize that. Oh, I helped somebody through that. Oh, wait a sec. And all of that, yes, that was just my epiphany moment right there. But absolutely.
It's so good. But you know what? That goes back to, I remember you and I were having a conversation and I was saying like, this is my problem. And you were like, okay, but, and I don't even think it was like a coaching session. I think we were just having a discussion and you were like, well, what would you say to a client of yours? If they came to you with this problem, what would you say? And I was like, well, I would say this. And you're like, well, that's what you need to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's what you need to do. You need to listen to what, like, pretend that you're talking to a client. And I was like, that is the best advice I've probably ever gotten up until that point, was like, how would you coach somebody? Because it's so much easier, I find, to give somebody else advice than it is to give us our own. And maybe that's back to what you were saying about with my husband, how I needed to say it to him because he was not going to listen to his own
Exactly
voice, right? That's why we have somebody else. Oh, so good. And that's the important thing about working with a coach, is like, all of the realizations you and I have had over the time, they're all realizations that we were meant to have at some point. Like, it's all going to happen. But what we do by working with each other and by working with our own coaches and by helping, you know, we're helping our clients too, like, collapse the timeline, right? Like, it can take you 20, 30, 40 years. Like, you can make it all the way to 100 years old and still not have accomplished what we've accomplished in just, you know, 12, 18 months.
exactly
Because we're willing to find, like, I was finally willing to reach out and ask for help, and your clients are finally willing to reach out and ask for help, and my clients are finally like, okay, I need help. Like, I see that you have what I need. Like, I need your help, right? Like, we're not meant to do it alone, right? It's funny because on one hand,
never, and we have it so beat into us that we're supposed to, which is a huge problem.
no, I know. And it's so funny because on one hand, we're very much like, humans are, we operate in tribe mentality. We want to be accepted. We want to be part of something, right? We want to work with other people, essentially. But then on the other hand, it's like, be independent, don't ask for help, figure it out yourself. Like, if you ask for help, you're weak. If you admit that you're sad, you're, you know, a pansy or whatever. Yeah. Like, and it's just like, I will tell you, I remember, I don't know if it was right before or right after you and I had a discussion, but about maybe a couple of months ago last year, same time last year, I had been working on building momentum for my business, remember? And then there was 2 girls who had continuously said to me, I'm going to work with you. I'm going to work with you. I'm going to work with you. And then all of a sudden they had enrolled with somebody else. And I was like devastated, right? I was like devastated. And, but because we had been working together and we were actually, I think we were in the middle of a conversation. You're like, okay, well, that's just, you know, XYZ and opportunity to expand and whatever else. And then ultimately, like, my conscious was like, okay, well, but this other girl did do a better job of marketing her business too. You know what I mean? Like, she's just at a better place. But in those moments, I did something that I have never done before. I was sitting at I was almost sitting exactly almost right here, over a couple of feet. And I just was bawling. I let myself be sad about it for a minute. And then my husband came in, and normally I would just, like, you know what I mean? And like clean it all up and like leave it. Right. And then I thought, no, you know what? I'm going to let him I'm going to let him be part of this. I'm going to let him in. I'm going to ask him for comfort. I'm going to tell him why I'm like on the verge of tears right now, just thinking about it. Like, I'm going to let him in. I'm going to let him be the hero that I know he wants to be, right? And like comfort me. And I'm going to tell him what's going on. And anyway, that whole experience lasted like, I don't know, 2.5 hours or something, or an hour and a half or whatever. And the funnier thing there, well, let's go back to that for a second. It only lasted like maybe an hour and a half or 2.5 hours. I forget what it was. Normally, something like that would derail me for like days, right? Because I'd be like, oh my God, like, and I would get all in my head.
I remember that post.
Yeah.
That you made. Yes.
Yeah. Like, I would get like, oh, I can't, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe this is not the right thing. Maybe these girls, like, maybe they know something I don't know about my ability, blah, whatever, right? But the funny thing is, I didn't realize, I went back and read both of the messages from the girls because we had been, a little backstory, because we had been talking about working together, and whoever they were working with had posted that they had signed up for her thing. I knew that they knew that I was probably going to see this post. So I was like, you know what, to get rid of any of the weird energy, I'm just going to message them both and I'm going to say, congratulations on this. Like, I'm so excited for you. The girl they chose to work with was amazing too. Like, I use her for psychic readings all the time and whatever. So I wanted them to know that I was like, I knew, and that I was like on board with it. And they both sent me back very nice messages, but all I could hear, could see, could feel was that I had been like abandoned basically. And then they went to this other woman, right? But then when I went back and read the messages, they both said basically that they were using this other coach as a stepping stone to work with me. And I was like, oh shit. It was always in that message, but I didn't read that.
Yeah.
Because I was so in my woe is me, you know what I mean? That I didn't even, like, I read it obviously, but I didn't like
infuse it.
Yeah. It's like, it wasn't even there. Like, it was like magic erase, and it was just like not there. And then when I read it again, I was like, okay. When I had worked through some of the shadow work over that little conversation with you and done the stuff, I was like, okay, no, I'm actually, like, they've put me on some kind of like mentor pedestal.
Yeah.
And feel that they're not ready or worthy to do that. So, and I was like, okay. So that felt a lot better to me. You know what I mean? And I was like, all right. And then that whole experience ended up being a huge ego boost, when initially it was like a deflation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the magic of shadow work. When you can work with somebody and learn to look at these things and understand what they mean. Because I don't think, if we had not been working together, I don't know that I even would have gone back and read the messages a second time to pick out that message. Do you know what I mean?
But you would have always just been in that mindset that like, nope, they just didn't want me. Nope, they just left me.
Yeah, totally. So it's shadow. I'm like, man, when people ask me, what is, like, I saw somebody that post the other day in another group, she said, like, what is the vital piece of inner work when you're becoming, you know, a manifesting machine? And I was like, shadow work. Like, don't go around it, do it. It's so good, because all it is, like, it sounds like this whole scary thing, but all it is, like, if I was to sum it up in like 1 or 2 sentences, depending on how much I go off on a tangent here, I would say that it's just fully getting to know all the aspects of yourself and embracing it all and using it all to your advantage. Because like I said earlier, you are the person you are no matter what. Like, I have childhood abandonment trauma issues, whether I recognize it or not, right? Like, that's not going to change. That's not going to go away. But now that I know that, it's easier for me to pick out when I am acting from that trauma response place, and
Absolutely.
when I'm acting in alignment with who I really am. You know what I mean? Like, that's very empowering to know, because then when you, and I'll have moments where I act from trauma, and then I'm just like, why, like, what was that? Like, who are you right now? Snap out of it. You know what I mean? And it's like, woo, that was weird. And then I'll, you know, kind of like reframe what happened. And then I'll talk myself back down from like the argument or and generally it's not even actually an argument. I just turned it into that because I'm responding.
No, it's definitely, that's like a great way to sum it up. It's like the embrace of your fullest sense of self to amplify your inherent power. That's how I would
So
Because, you know, it's like taking all that you are to fuel all that you can be,
yeah,
essentially. Yeah.
totally, totally. Because these things are not going to change. And it doesn't, like for me, it doesn't
And
do
you
you any
need
good.
the heat.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you need to like heat that fire, and sometimes you got to burn to build too. So like all of that, every single piece of you, and that's the other, like people are most afraid of themselves. If you've tackled anything actually scary in your life, you can tackle the person you look at in the mirror every day. You know what I mean? And as soon as you start tackling her, like as soon as you can understand yourself, you can understand the universe. And until you understand yourself, I personally, you won't convince me you can understand the universe without understanding yourself.
No,
Because
because you are the universe. Like you
exactly,
are. And
exactly.
you know, further to that, to these points we're making here is like, oh shit, what was I gonna say? I had a whole, damn it. I went this whole time without that happening.
That's funny.
It's
Well,
so
it's
bad.
because it's been like an hour now, of course. So your brain is
Yeah,
jogging.
like I'm trying. I was gonna say shadow. Oh, I think another aspect of shadow work that kind of freaks people out is like it sounds like you're gonna go actively digging for shit that you want to uncover.
Yeah.
But it's not about sitting there and like digging all this shit up at once. It's about just becoming aware of where it's already presenting itself in your reality
Yes.
and changing your perspective on what's going on and understanding, like you say, understanding who you are and why you respond the way you do. Because it's not enough, like a lot of people are trying to like change habits and change behaviors and all this. It's like, but that's surface level shit, man.
And you
You got
can't
to
even
figure out
change those until you know why those things are playing out to begin with.
exactly like somebody like this is I think also a common misconception with manifestation, and one that I started with was, oh, the rituals, do the rituals, do this, do that, bring about the money, manifest the partner, whatever. That's all fine and good. You can do all of those things. The rituals work. Like I know I've done them, they work. But that is a band-aid solution. That is not, like I said before, anybody can just do the rituals. It's
Yeah.
hanging on to the things, right? Like if you don't figure out who you are fundamentally and then learn to work with that and let it unfold as it needs to and let it come up, like I said, it's not about digging for shit, it's about letting it
Exactly.
come up as you're ready for it, right? Each thing will come up as it's
As you're ready. And that's like the most important piece is it's like sometimes you're not ready for everything. You're ready for this, that leads to this, that leads to this, that leads to this, that leads to this.
yeah, yeah. And you know, like one of the best examples of like band-aid solution manifesting and the need to get deeper is like, so for example, one of my clients had, the first couple of months she had a couple of payment processing issues. Like it came late, but she was moving things around and this and that, whatever. And she's like, I'm sorry, I just need to manifest this or whatever. And I was like, no, you need to get to the root cause of why your financial situation is such a fucking fuck show. You know what I mean? Like get to the root of why you've created this. Like how did this become what it is? Why is this something you're dealing with right now? Because when you
Every
can,
month.
yeah, if yeah, before 30 days from now. No, but you won't, if you can figure all of that out, you don't need the rituals and all this shit. It will just be everything just works out for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, and shadow work is very much a part of that. Like what brought about the chaos in your finances, and where is that being shown elsewhere too? Because how you do one thing is how you do
Exactly.
all things, right? So where else is this chaos coming up, and how, what's the common thread? You know what I mean? Like how can we break this down to like the root cause and
It's
work
like if
on that?
you're breaking down a math problem, you know how you have to simplify. I mean, and I'm not a math girl, but they always say you simplify the math problem down. And
Mm-hmm.
then so you start off with something like this big, and then you do there's some sort of acronym, and then it goes to, it's thinking something with the parentheses first. That's all I
Yeah.
remember. You do the parentheses first, and then eventually you have like n+4 at the end.
And you're like,
That's
oh,
like
okay,
what
yeah.
the whole process is like. You have to get down and simplify it all to what it actually is that's like coming from,
Yeah.
if that
Well, you
makes
know
any
what?
sense.
And I want to play off your really great analogy about the computer, right? And
Oh, I love
your
that
hard
one.
drive, your hard drive being your subconscious, right? And then your screen is your conscious, and your conscious is just working off your subconscious. So with the computer analogy in mind, a lot of people, if their computer is running slow, for example, they're like, oh, I've got too many files on here. I'm going to just get rid of some files and I'm going to do this. But it's like, well, why don't you just upgrade your operating system?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because what's happening, like at least with a Mac, right? What happens is the operating system gets out of date. So the apps can't refresh because they're only compatible with the new operating system, not with this old one, right? Because they've been continuously updated as well. So if you are trying to operate new updated apps on an older version of the operating system, of course things are going to run slow because they're running at, basically you're trying to run things at different frequencies, right? But if
Exactly.
you upgrade the operating system in the tower, right, what's reflected on your screen and the speed that your computer works is more efficient, right? Because it's now working at full capacity again. So like that's basically
Yeah.
what we're doing.
And that computer, I don't know, and that was something that just came to me when I was doing your emotional alchemy training this month. Like that metaphor, that whole analogy, like just came out of nowhere. And it's literally, it's so, and especially even with the uninstalling programs too, it's like you can't just delete them from your home screen, from your monitor. Like you want to really get rid of that space to welcome and to be able to download something new. You've got to clear it out. You got to uninstall it, which is what the shadow work is for as well.
Yeah, exactly. You can't just take the shortcut off the desktop. That's just suppressing it. It's still there. You know, you haven't dealt with it. You have to go and actually uninstall. That's so beautiful.
Love that.
It's so good.
This has been so good.
It's so good. And I think that's a great place to just leave
I
it.
think so
That's
too.
so good. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for sitting down with me. This has been months in the making.
Totally. It's so
But
good.
this is the perfect moment, the perfect time, just because even if you think about it, half of the things, like this is all like accumulation of a lot of recent stuff as well. So
Well,
this is
and
perfect. I'm
that's
so excited to share this conversation with everyone.
yeah, exactly. That's how this kind of thing unfolds, right? We have been talking about this literally for months and couldn't make it work. But I think we were still both, whether we realized it or not at the time, in the middle of serious, like I know for me, from like April to like now, it's just been like an upward, like in a good way, but like in an
Yeah.
upward, like up level breakthrough, like things happening. So, and you definitely the same thing,
Clearing.
right?
Yeah,
Totally.
mine was a bunch of clearing.
Yeah, but you know, it got us where we need to be now for this amazing conversation to go in our amazing containers and help all of the
Oh,
people. And I'm just so
love
excited.
it. I'm
Thank
so
you so
excited
much.
too. Thank you, babe. Have a great day.
You too. Love you.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye.